For the second straight year, the Utah Red Rocks have a chance to play spoiler. Last season, number 1 ranked Georgia came to town, and the Utes took the Bulldogs to the wire. Tonight, the top-ranked Florida Gators are here, and it's another chance for the Utes to take down the team on the top. It doesn't get any better than this. Women's gymnastics is coming at you.
Somehow find you and I collide.
The University of Utah tries to claw its way back up the national rankings, ranked 7th after stubbing their toe against Nebraska. And tonight, the number 1 ranked Florida Gators are in the house. Hi, everybody. Steve Brown along with Missy Marlowe. Welcome to the John M. Huntsman Center in Salt Lake City. And Missy, as we approach the Nationals, which will be in this building, how important is tonight's meet for Utah?
Well, tonight is huge. The Utes are ranked number 7th. That's the lowest they've been in several years. And they don't want to have to reach number 6 on the night that it really counts. It'd be nice to have a little bit of cushion and try to climb a few more spots before the regionals and nationals.
Well, they've got an uphill battle because Florida is number 1, a very, very deep team. But if you had to talk about one individual, I guess someone who's been perfect twice is probably as good to single out as anybody.
Yes. Melanie Sinclair has all kinds of expertise under her belt. She's had a ton of experience at the World Cup level as a 5-year veteran member of the national team, so she's ready to go tonight. We have heard that she's not feeling quite 100%, a little bit of illness, but she's ready to compete. She'll be fine.
And she has 2 perfect 10s on bars going for her, so you know that she can get it done. Now, let's talk about the University of Utah because they've had their struggles. We take you back to February 23rd in this building in the dual meet against Michigan. A scary moment in the floor exercise for Nicole Ford. Give us the update on her status tonight. She was injured and had to be taken away from the floor exercise. How is she doing now?
Well, it was a heart-stopping moment for Utah fans when she was not able to complete her floor routine. However, it's just a severe sprain. She'll be competing bars and beam tonight, and the coaches would absolutely not let her go if she weren't 100%, so she'll be fine.
Well, Florida is number 1, but they've struggled in this building. They'd like to break through tonight against Utah. The Utes will have something to say about that. It's women's gymnastics, and it's coming at you next.
This KJAZ TV sports broadcast is supported in part by Carl's Jr. For the great taste of charbroiled burgers, the name of the game is Carl's Jr. The Les Olson Company, digital copier and fax specialists, quality and service since 1956. R.C. Willey, one place, so many possibilities.
Welcome back to the John M. Huntsman Center in Salt Lake City. Just a few moments, the first rotation will get things going. Utah will begin on the vault, Florida on the bars. Steve Brown along with Missy Marlowe. And Missy, 2 coaches here at the opposite ends of their careers, but both of them impactful coaches. Greg Marsden, he needs no introduction. Over 30 years, multiple national championships. But let's start with Florida's head coach, a former teammate of yours on the Olympic team. Actually, she was an alternate the year you were an Olympian.
Rhonda was the first alternate to the 1988 Olympic team that I was on. And in her short tenure at Florida, they have set every school record that the girls can do. So, I mean, what a way to come on strong, and she's really known as one of the up-and-coming coaches in the collegiate scene. Yeah,
Rhonda Fain, who will direct the fortunes of the Florida Gators tonight, and Greg Marsden, more than 30 years at the helm of this Utah program. It's been a while since they've had a national championship, but they get to host the Nationals this year. How important is it to be able to host the Nationals? First, you've got to qualify, as you pointed out in the opening stand-up, because only the top 6 teams will go to the final night. But how much of an advantage can it be in a sport like gymnastics, especially with this venue?
Well, it's a little stressful to host nationals. I know you ask any coach, there's advantages to being at home, absolutely. But being away from home also has its advantages in some cases. So there's going to be a little more work to do here in the postseason. The coaches are a little more distracted, but at the same time, as an athlete, I never got to have the national championships here in the Huntsman Center, and I would have given my right arm to be able to do that. So I think it's just a fantastic opportunity for the girls. I hope they're excited. I know they are. They just need to pull it together and get some consistency going, because as it stands right now, they're ranked number 7, and everybody knows only the top 6 teams can even go into the top 6 Super 6 finals at nationals. So they have some work to do here. Move up a couple spots, get some confidence going.
And first up on the vault for Utah will be hometown product Jessica Duke, just down the road in Sandy. She will lead things off. Had a fine season, hitting 22 of 24 routines this year.
Here's her Yurchenko full. And a great landing. She managed to salute before she was just a little bit off, so that won't be a deduction. And Steve, I cannot emphasize enough how important these stuck landings are going to be. Here you see round off back handspring, really gets a good pop and pulls it straight up. That's a great start for Utah.
Nicola Willis of Hadley, England will be first up on the bars for Florida. She has already reset collegiate bars best twice this season. She had a 9.90 at the 07 Super 6 Challenge and then 9.925 on the 16th of February against Kentucky. She likes this event.
So far, she's got a great routine going. The judges are looking for the arms to be straight at all times. Of course, perfect form through the legs and toes. Here she's setting up for a dismount, 2 giant swings to a beautiful double layout and just a half attempt deduction on the hop on the landing.
Nina Kim will be Utah's next vaulter. Her teammate Jessica Duke opened with a 9.75.
Okay, here's the same vault that we saw Jessica do. Round off back handspring, layout full, and just a large hop backwards. Otherwise a clean vault. She piked it down just a little bit too much at the end. With this kind of power, she really can flare the landing a little bit more. She just pulled her feet underneath you. You can see the distance. She's at the back end of the mat.
Samantha Lutz is next up on bars for Florida. Nicola Willis recorded a 9.8 bar routine to open things to set the standard for Florida.
Florida is currently ranked number 1 in the country on bars. The same for floor, and they're ranked number 2 on balance beam. So high scores starting with their first competitor is nothing new to Florida. There's an uprise half pirouette to immediate ganger. Blind change, straddle back, just the tiniest bit short in the handstand there. Back up to high bar, setting up for her dismount sequence. And a full twisting double layout, one of the hardest dismounts that can be done.
Sarah Shire, a freshman, a former 5-year U.S. national team member, is next up on Utah's vault.
Okay, here's our third Yurchenko full. Let's see if she can keep it stretched. Again, just hopping. Now, all they need to do is plie and catch the landing a little bit better, and they'll be able to eliminate those half attempt through 1/10 steps. You can see she just explodes off the horse. Just needs to straighten out a little bit more in the air.
Her teammate, by the way, Nina Kim, recorded a 9.80 before her, so Utah turning in some good scores on the vault. And we now move back to the bars again, where Corey Hartung will be next up for the Gators.
There's a beautiful back stalder. Again, the gymnasts are required to move between high and low bar twice during the routine. Into a gorgeous front stalder. Vault half over the high bar. And dismount with a half in, half out, and a perfect landing.
Annie DeLuzio next up on the vault for the University of Utah. Sarah Shire, her teammate, recording a 9.8 just a moment ago.
There's the round off back handspring, layout full. A gorgeous vault. That's the highest vault we've seen so far. Again, they still are having at least a half attempt pop on the landings, but this really popped off the horse well. We'll see a little bit better explosive height out of the back handspring. Look at that. She finishes the entire vault above the vault level.
Ashley Reed is the next bars competitor for the University of Florida. Corey Hartung a moment ago, her teammate, recording a 9.8.
So far, Florida holding true to form on their scoring. Clean routines and a flying to Tkachev. And a little bit close to the bar, although she didn't break form at all when she caught. Dismount sequence. Another double layout and a perfect landing. You know, they just make it look so easy. There is no second guessing for these guys.
Christina Basquette, a crowd favorite. Next up on Utah's vault, Annie DeLuzio, her teammate, a 9.85 score on the preceding vault.
Here we're going to see our first full and a half twist. And again, just the 2 steps there. You know, she makes that vault look so easy. It's really difficult to land a forward landing. There's the round off back handspring, full and a half twist. far, I would say the Utes just need to open up their body positions a little bit more in the air in order to avoid those steps on the landing.
Amanda Castillo next up on bars for Florida. Ashley Reed a 9.9 on the bars just prior to that, which means that right now Corey Hartung's 9.8 is the lowest bars score for Florida, so they're setting the pace very early.
There we saw just the smallest of arches on the first handstand. To a beautiful Tkachev. Shoot half to handstand on low bar. Again, just a few degrees short of a completely vertical handstand there. And a double layout, small hop back. And, you know, I have to tell you, Steve, I'm being so critical on the comments to say someone is, 5 degrees off of a handstand, but that's how good these guys are. That's all there is to say.
That's why they're number one in the nation. And Ashley Postel for Utah, now the final vault competitor.
And in my opinion, this is the single most difficult vault that can be done. And this isn't something we've seen from Ashley, off a little bit on her steps. We saw that from Nicole Ford in the last competition. As long as the gymnast doesn't touch the board, she can go again. She doesn't seem too concerned, hopefully. At least not showing it.
And pulling up on the run, obviously preferable than fouling and defaulting the opportunity.
Yeah, it's a disaster otherwise. There's no other option. She'll be doing a round off, half onto the horse. Half turn, pike front off. Absolutely gorgeous. Just the tiniest of balance checks on the landing. And this really just is so difficult to do, to twist onto the horse and still get a good block. Front half, one step back with the right foot.
Melanie Sinclair, the final athlete for Florida on the bars. And remember, she's recorded a pair of perfect 10s so far on the season.
There was a free hip to Tkachev. Very unusual release move. Full pirouette to Ganger. Shoot half to a balanced handstand. So far living up to her reputation. Here's Melanie setting up for a dismount. Giant, giant. Double layout, and there goes the 10, just a little bit short on the landing.
Well, that's going to wrap it up. The end of the first rotation. When we come back, we'll take a look at the scores, and former Ute All-America Melissa Vitoy will join us here in the Huntsman Center. Back to the Huntsman Center in Salt Lake City, Utah. After the first rotation, we look at the scores. Utah posting a 49.20 on the vault. But Missy, you look at that 49.275 by Florida on the bars. A fine opening score, and they've really, I think, made the statement that if they're going to be knocked off their number one perch, Utah will have to be on their A game tonight.
Well, absolutely. I think we knew that coming in, though, didn't we?
Well, true, and if there is an Achilles heel for this Florida team, it's on the vault.
It's vault, exactly. Well, they are the number one. Florida's the number one ranked team on bars and floor, but they're only number 6 on vault. So maybe Utah can make up some ground here. I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Well, we're joined by a very special guest here at the table, and she's no stranger to you, Missy Marlowe.
No, Melissa, what have you been doing with yourself? It's been 3 years now.
I know it has been a long time since I've been out on the floor.
A long time, she said.
It seems like a long time to me. I wish I was still out there. I'm actually working for the Salt Lake Valley Health Department in obesity prevention. Wonderful. I run a program. It's called Way Active and Healthy. And we just try to help people get more physically active and eat nutritiously.
Let's talk a little bit about this Utah team. You've seen them this year. Are you surprised in any way? What do you think the forecast is for them as they approach nationals? And talk to me about hosting nationals.
Well, hosting nationals is just going to be very exciting. You know, when Greg was announcing earlier this before the meet, he had everybody stand up who had season tickets, and I thought I was really astounded by how many people were there, so it's going to be a really fun time. As for forecasting them, I think, you know, I'm hoping that they'll peak at the right time for competition, and you know, these meets are really important competing against the top level teams.
Let's talk about the next rotation, because it's something you know all too well. Utah finds themselves on the bars next, and this is a team that has had some problems, but everybody seemed to step up when somebody else has fallen down. It's a sign of a deep team.
Yeah, that's right. And it's really amazing that they have such depth with so many freshmen on the team, because it's hard, for them to adjust to the collegiate gymnastics routines also. So, they really don't know what the other team has done on the other event, so they're just going out there and doing what they know best.
Well, I think some ground can be made up here. Let's see
Well,
what happens.
Absolutely.
Well, we'll see how you are forecasting. How's that?
I hope I'm right.
All right, here we go. Second rotation coming up. Utah will be on the bars, and Florida, if they have an Achilles heel again, it's on this rotation in the vault. And it's senior All-America Katie Rue first up on vault for Florida.
There's a round off back handspring layout full. Again, the same vault. Just the slightest slide backwards there. And a little bit of a pike in the body position throughout the vault.
Nina Kim first up on the bars for the University of Utah.
Okay, she heads straight up to high bar. There's a toe on, toe off to Kachev. And just the slightest bobble on that. No form break, so not a big problem, but she did see the hesitation in the handstand. Giant swing. And a half in, half out, and a beautiful landing for Nina. Really great start. This team knows that they're in the running. There isn't anything about them that does not want to win this meet. They've got to give it their all. How do you think that routine looked, Melissa?
That routine looked great. There was that one bobble on the handstand, but then, she got aggressive and stuck the landing perfectly. It looked great. It's a great way to start off the routine.
Next up for Florida is Savannah Evans. Her teammate Katie Rue with a 9.825 to lead things off on the vault. And how about this one, ladies?
That was a nice round off back handspring, half off to layout. Again, you saw the big hop on the landing, so having a little bit of difficulty also sticking the landings on vault, but otherwise a really clean vault.
Yeah, it looks nice.
Daria Bijak will be next up for Utah on the bars.
There's a vault mount over low bar. Full pirouette. Ganger. Named after the first German gymnast to perform it. To immediate front Jaeger. Nice shoot half to handstand on low bar. It's important that the gymnasts show perfectly straight handstands. And a double front dismount. And boy, they're making up for the little steps on vault with two great landings on bars.
They really are making up for those steps.
It is so difficult to land double fronts.
Right, because it's a blind
and forward
landing.
Vaults. It's just really hard to judge.
Breanne King next up for Florida. A pair of 9.825s preceded her by Katie Rue and Savannah Evans.
And she had a nice vault. She didn't really explode off the horse. The idea really is to be twisting still on the rise off the horse. And easier said than done, but the gymnast wants to, as much as possible, not block and then perform the vault on the way down.
Jessica Duke now for Utah on the bars following Daria Bijak's 9.85.
And Jessica has just been having a fantastic season. There's a hop full to immediate ganger, really stretched well on the catch. Maybe even a little bit fingertipped on that. To a gorgeous shoot half on low bar. And a half in, half out. Oh, and just this step forward. That's too bad. She had perfect form in the air on the dismount. Just didn't get her feet underneath her quite enough.
Corey Hartung, the next Florida vaulter. Breanne King scored a 9.875 on her last vault.
Well, they really liked the stick on the landing on that last vault. Round off back handspring, tucked full and a half. Really difficult, and she really nailed the landing there.
Kind of caught me off guard there with the tuck full instead of the layout
Yeah, you don't
full.
see the tuck position
Right.
too often.
Well, if Florida is weak on vault, so far they haven't shown. Ashley Postel is the next bars competitor for the University of Utah. A moment ago, her teammate Jessica Duke with a 9.8.
Nice handstand.
There's a toe on, toe off, half pirouette. Jaeger. absolutely perfect handstand positions to a pack salto. I think one of the most beautiful release moves on bars. To immediate toe shoot. An eagle or an inverted grip to double front. And that is so hard, I just can't even describe.
It was beautiful.
The flexibility that takes through the shoulder joints and even all the way down through the wrist.
Right.
It's just amazing. Here's the dismount, inverted shoulders to a double front. And Ashley is well on their way to putting the meet together that she's been waiting for.
Amanda Castillo next up on the vault for Florida. Corey Hartung had a 9.85, so Florida continues to vault well.
Here's another full and a half twist. Let's see how she gets the landing. And just that hop back, you know, she really was going for the stick. She was very well extended on the landing. Almost just a little bit too much, though, as opposed to Christina, who took the step forward.
Christina Basquet next up. Ashley Postel a moment ago. Ladies, a 9.95 for Utah on the bars.
Well-deserved root score on that. Last year's co-champion on this event as a freshman. Said she was as surprised as anybody. Doesn't feel like she's particularly strong at bars. Thank goodness the judges didn't agree. And there her hand slipped. Now that's similar to what happened earlier in the season. She didn't actually hit the ground while coming off the bar, so that's not a fall. Not the routine she hoped to do, though. There's her dismount, double layout, and a step back.
Ashley Reed, the final vaulter for Florida. Amanda Castillo recorded a 9.85 just a moment ago.
Here's another full and a half twist. And one more step on the landing. You know, you have to give credit to Florida to have 3 gymnasts performing full and half twists. It really says a lot about their vaulting ability.
Nicole Ford, the final bars competitor for the University of Utah. Young lady who sustained that sprained ankle in the meet here against Michigan in February. We'll see how she fares tonight. Only competing in two of the apparatus.
Well, and again, she would not be competing if she weren't full strength. So a nice piked Jaeger to another immediate Ginger. So far, moving really well through the routine.
Beautiful.
Setting up for her dismount. This is really the only part of a bar routine that tests the ankle. Double layout and just an unbelievable routine. You know, and really the step on that dismount really isn't a bad idea on her part. There's nothing worse on a sprained ankle than risking coming in a little bit short. And with a few more meets left to go, and the most important ones, that was probably a good call to make sure she overdid it rather than underdid it.
And that's a pair of rotations in the book, thanks to former Utah All-America Melissa Vitoy. When we come back, we'll look at the scores through the 2 rotations, and Missy will visit with Utah head coach Greg Marsden.
This KJazz TV sports broadcast is supported in part by Regents Blue Cross Blue Shield. For your health, Chakarama. The choice is yours at Chakarama. Wells Fargo, the next stage. Larry H. Miller Dealerships. After all, you know this guy.
Welcome back to the John M. Huntsman Center. 2 rotations are now in the books, and we take a look at the total score at the end. It couldn't be too much closer. Florida with the lead at 98.575. Utah at 98.525. The individual scores on the vault for Florida, the area that they have struggled in meets past, 49.3. And Utah on the bars with a 49.325. Let's go to Missy Marlowe standing by with Utah head coach Greg Marsden, find out his take on the halfway mark. Missy?
Okay, thanks, Steve. Well, we've caught up with Coach Greg Marsden before he runs and hides in the tunnel for balance beam. Coach, does this meet everything you thought it'd be so far?
Yeah, it's a great meet. Florida brought their game. We're doing a pretty good job. Of course, you'd always like to stick more dismounts, and we had the one little slip with Christina's pack salto. But other than that, we're doing a good, solid job.
Well, and Florida's had a few steps on some of their landings, too, we saw. So, you know, neither team, I would say, is at 100%, but I think we're probably pushing maybe 98, 99% here. It looks really strong.
Well, it does. You know, 2 talented teams. you know, it's exactly what you expect.
It is good. And this will be a great warm-up for nationals also. So tell me, what's their mood been like the last week? How have they come back? How have they held themselves together after Nicole's ankle injury?
You know, I think we've really come together as a team now. I think we were struggling a bit earlier with, you know, the freshmen and the returning people, and but I think, to be honest, I think the Georgia meet was a turning point, and the freshmen are contributing more. I think the upperclassmen appreciate them more, and therefore I think the freshmen appreciate the upperclassmen, and it just feels like a team now.
Good. Okay, great. Well, we'll see what happens on these next two events. Anything can happen. Florida's going to their #1 ranked floor routines, and Utah on the beam, where typically they're the best in the country. They've struggled a little bit this year, so back to you, Steve.
All right, Missy, thank you very much. And it looks like a whale of a second half of the meet. So we'll go to rotation number 3. And, of course, the beam, the one thing that can be the real stopper for any team. Let's see how the Utes fare. Christina Basquette will lead things off for Utah on the beam.
Christina's been moved to the leadoff position here. She's had some inconsistencies on beam for the last 2 years. Although I think it's important to note her high this year of 39.7 in the all-around is tied for first in the country for high all-around. There's a beautiful back handspring layout, and I know she's determined to come back after her miss on bars. It's so uncharacteristic of her on that event. Switch side. There's a switch leap to straddle jump. Required leap combination, just the tiniest balance error on the landing. And another required skill, front tuck. And the little jump that she did out of it, the changement, doesn't look like much, but it's really difficult to combine jumps with a big tumbling skill. So that was a 10th of bonus right there to combine the jump out of the front tuck. And round off, double twist, and a beautiful stuck landing. And wow, is she happy to come back from that. Honestly, Steve, how can you not absolutely love pause? And such great energy. It just, and you can't help but be affected by that if you're on a team with her.
Katie Rue will get things started for Florida on the floor.
Florida had a great warm-ups on floor. All kinds of difficulty in their tumbling.
Not that they had difficulty with it, but it's just in the routine, right?
Yeah.
Just to be sure.
Full twisting double back. Landed no problem. They had all kinds of time to come down on that. Staying in the corner, saving up some energy for the second tumbling run. Whip half to front full.
Some of the dance elements that the judges look for.
Here's one right here. Full turning straddle jump to full turning Shishanova. Again, you'll hear that music almost always will switch to a little bit slower pace before the third tumbling pass, before it picks back up. Final tumbling run. Double pike and a great routine for Florida to start.
So Katie Rue for Florida with the first floor routine.
I have a feeling that they've put the gator bite, if you will. What is that? The gator jaws that she finished her routine with into every routine. Some point in the dance.
Daria Bijak next up for Utah on the beam. Christina Basquette, by the way, led off with a 9.875. If you can get that off your leadoff performer, leadoff gymnast, that's a great way to set the tone.
Well, I think the judges are excited too. She did have a few small balance checks, but a really great routine. And so far, here's another one that was a fantastic back handspring layout and a switch leap half turn. Split jump, tuck 3/4, little half a tenth there. Moving with confidence.
She was the 2005 and 2006 German national champion and placed 8th at the 2005 World Championships, but she underwent knee surgery back in November and is working herself back into a starting job. So Daria Bijak, just a freshman.
Well, so far, Daria just has an amazing routine going. Switch leap, straddle jump. Again, it's required to combine 2 leaping or jumping elements. Full turn, that's also a requirement. And a front full. Another great routine. Boy, the Utes are ready to finally start rallying for some of these victories. They are not going to let another one slip away. There's the dismount front full. Stuck landing.
Savannah Evans next up on the floor for Florida. And she is right at home on the floor because she advanced to the NCAA event finals in the floor last year at the NCAA championships.
Some Irish dance music. Of course, the gymnast cannot step over the white line. Front handspring, tuck double front, and that was about as well as it can be performed. It's not a deduction to use the mat. You may see the white lines back there that just has to be marked so the judges know if the gymnast were to go out of bounds.
And Savannah Evans' teammate Katie Rue recorded a 9.8. So Florida starting out well. And this exercise by Savannah Evans got the crowd into it. That's something hard to do on the road, too.
Well, it is. And, you know, Utah is a wonderful place to compete because the crowd's always appreciative. And, you know, they're not a mean or hostile crowd. Of course, they're going to go crazy for the Utes. But they will clap and cheer for any good routine.
Yeah, remember, this is a road crowd for Florida, and you hear that noise from the Utah partisans here. So they really show their maturity and their knowledge of gymnastics. It's a very knowledgeable crowd. And this is the change of pace that you talked about in the music.
It's really important that the gymnasts do a pretty difficult third tumbling pass. The judges want to see the triple fulls, double backs, double pikes. It's not okay to do one of the easier front tumbling or something of lesser value. That can be up to 1 or 2 tenths deductions for that.
Savannah Evans finishes her routine. Sarah Shire next up on the beam for Utah. Her teammate Daria Bijak a 9.9 a few minutes ago. A little bit generous maybe with these beam scores so far. You mentioned earlier a couple of times that there were some minor balance checks not being deducted much, certainly not on Daria's routine.
Right. Well, and, you know, all that matters is that it's consistent through the competition. There have been a couple meets where it seems the judges have been pretty tight. I think, you know, they know who's out there competing. Every meet's going to have its own flavor. Back handspring, one arm back handspring to lay out, step out. You know, and I think for the first time this season, the Utes seem to be feeling some momentum. There's a slight balance check there. She just didn't plie quite enough on the landing. Switch leap. Another one arm back handspring, step out. Skills in gymnastics are rated as an A, B, C, or D, or E. And they receive bonus based on what they're rated. So D's are 1/10 bonus, E's are 2/10. And then combinations of B's and C's are also bonus.
Sarah Shire, a little kick through for the dismount, and she seems pleased with it.
Except for the balance check on her jump. That was another great routine. Here's cartwheel, swing through full. Great landing.
Florida's Ashley Reed next up on the floor.
Okay, first tumbling run. Round up back handspring. Another full twisting double back. Again, just landed easily. They just look like they're dropping out of the sky.
Her teammate Savannah Evans had a 9.85 on this floor routine. Katie Rue with a 9.8. So Florida in good shape through the first 2 competitors.
Round off back handspring, 2.5 twist to front tuck, and just a little bit low on that. She did not step out of bounds. She came close, but she was fine. And just a little bit slow on the 2.5. There's the gator. I don't know what they call it. Should have asked him. Gator clap. Okay, final tumbling run. Pike double back, and just a little bit off on that also. So this will be the score so far that Florida will drop.
Ashley Reed. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll finish up with Utah on the beam and Florida on the floor. And welcome back, everybody. Let's get right back to the action with Utah on the beam, Florida on the floor in this third rotation. The next competitor, Nina Kim for Utah on the beam. Her teammate Sarah Shire recording a 9.825.
Here's the mount that I competed. Round off, layout, step out. Oh, no. You know, she just wasn't that far off if she had lunged a little bit harder. But once you straighten the legs, it's really hard to stay on. So here's back handspring, step out, layout, step out. I think Nina is so beautiful on the beam. That's really unfortunate that she missed the mount. Just the way she dances, she's very elegant and she's really flexible, and it just makes her, it's just a nice routine to watch. Front aerial, split jump, needle scale, so putting some pressure on the rest of the lineup for Utah with the miss on her mount.
And that's a rare miss for her because she is very consistent, hitting 22 of 24 routines on the season and 72 of 77 in her career here at Utah.
Nina has always been one of my favorites. I just love the way that she dances. I love her lines. I just think she's really pretty and still very powerful.
Florida's Corey Hartung next, up on the floor where she is well at home. She's a 3-time All-America.
Opening tumbling run. Triple twist. Just the tiniest bit short on that. About 2 3/4.
This is a young lady who recorded a 9.95 on the 16th of February against Kentucky, winning the floor. So she's certainly capable of sticking a routine here.
Okay, and there's the clap. Listen, some different music. I like it. It's not like something I think I've ever heard of her floor before. Front double twist. Great landing there. Dancing back to the corner. Whip to 2.5 twist. Little bit off on the landing again, but boy, what a difficult third tumbling pass.
And a rather different music presentation. That's Corey Hartung of Florida. Nina Kim's fall recording at a 9.375 a moment ago on the beam for Utah, and so that will undoubtedly be the one they hope to throw out. This is Nicole Ford.
Nicole hoping to display the fact that her ankle injury has not kept her from performing 100%. She's a very aggressive competitor. She thrives under pressure, has no problem with it. Back handspring layout, absolutely solid.
Now she's only competing in both the bars and the beam, and she had a 9.925 on the bars, so pretty impressive for the first rotation for her, and this will be her final rotation of the night.
Well, Florida hasn't put together, I'd say, their very best floor routines. Now, they've had a few little minor stumbles here and there. But Utah's opened the door with a false, so the pressure's really on for these next two. They want to stay in the running.
And Nicole Ford with a save right there.
It's a wolf jump. Straddle full. Again, just slight half-tenth bobbles here and there. By and large, though, Steve, I think that Utah has finally shown the competitive spirit that we're used to seeing from this team. Perhaps for the first time this year. They really look energized. They look like they're ready to really start taking it seriously for the last part of the season.
Well, they've got a challenge, all right, because Florida has been very good so far. Another little bobble on the landing for Nicole Ford. And as you pointed out on bars, that's probably where the ankle will be tested.
Right, well, there's no way she's been able to practice many landings. And this is a pretty difficult dismount. It's a front landing, 2.5 twist. She almost landed a little bit stiff-kneed on her left knee.
Amanda Castillo, the next competitor here on the floor for Florida. Her teammate Corey Hartung, a 9.85 a moment ago.
Beautiful pike full in.
Amanda Castillo is the 2004 and 2005 level 10 junior Olympic national floor champion. Just a freshman.
Whip to tuck double back. You know, she is so strong she doesn't even land. She doesn't even run into her tumbling passes. Nowhere near the corner. No risk of going out of bounds for her.
Castillo in the all-around with a 9.875 on the vault and a 9.85 on the bars as a 19.725. She is in third place coming into this rotation on the all-around.
Okay, setting up, taking a few breaths before the final tumbling run. Round off back handspring, pike double back. She is such a strong tumbler.
And she nailed that routine. This crowd, again, very appreciative of the effort of the visiting team from Florida. Ashley Postel of Utah next up on the beam. She leads the individual all-around right now after two scores with a 9.875 on the vault and a 9.925 on the bars for a 19.8 total. That puts her just percentage points ahead in the all-around category.
Well, and she is so comfortable on the balance beam. You know, and that's just something I've never quite understood. But she's just amazing to watch up there. She makes it look so easy. 2002 world champion on beam. Back handspring, layout, step out. Really taking charge of the performance here. I think Ashley feels like she's due an all-around win. An amazing three-quarter twisting back handspring to handstand. Dismount, round off, double twist, and there's the routine. And so far, here's the move that Ashley's been waiting for.
Well, and Nicole Ford recorded a 9.825 a moment ago before her, so they may have just saved that beam rotation for the University of Utah. Yeah, this crowd likes what they saw from Ashley Postel.
Okay, and here you can see she's pleased with it too. As great as she is on beam, she's struggled a little bit this year. So, you know, I think this Utah team really feels like they could upset Florida. Now look at those scores. I mean, Florida's holding their own, so this is going to come down to the last event, which is just what everybody wants to see here, and of course what we expected.
And Nicola Willis is last up for the University of Florida on the floor. She'll be up next.
Now Florida just does not give up anything to deduct. Their tumbling passes are high, they're easily landed. Oh, and I spoke too soon. She came up really short on that double layout. Again, which may have just opened the door for Utah to take a good chance here when they come to floor. But just, with the exception of a few problems here now as I'm speaking, they're just clean and they've been hitting just like they've done all season long.
Well, Ashley Postel had a 9.95 on the beam to conclude Utah's beam rotation, so they are able to drop that 9.375 from Nina Kim. Great clutch performance by those last couple of Utah competitors, Nicole Ford and Ashley Postel.
Well, and that's what coaches Greg and Megan Marsden needed to see. They needed to see that this team had some fight, and that, if something went wrong, they could come back and cover for each other, and that's something they've been lacking all year. And
you saw the look on Nicola Willis's face. It's pretty obvious she knows this routine is gone. They will not count hers in all probability, which means that the 9.75 from Ashley Reed will be the lowest floor routine that Florida will have to count. That's not a bad default position.
It's not, but that's going to open the door for Utah. We'll really have to see. And she may have some ankle or some shin problems because typically your last athlete's your strongest.
Well, when we come back, we'll take a look at the scores through the 3 rotations, and we'll be joined by former Ute Gabriella Onodi. That's coming up next. It's Utah and Florida from the John M. Huntsman Center in Salt Lake City. And welcome back, everybody. Let's take a look at the scores through 3 rotations. And Missy Marlowe, Utah now with a 147.90 to a 147.75, a 1,500ths lead. With Florida, normally with a team that's going on to the beam, you would think that the home team on the floor would have the advantage, but Florida ranks 2nd in the nation in beam. This is anything but over.
Well, it's anything but over, but I'd rather be in Utah's position than Florida's right now. Utah's finally getting it tonight. The crowd is on fire. They're yelling, they're screaming, they're going crazy, and the Utes know that they can beat the #1 ranked team tonight, and I think they're going to do it.
All right, let's welcome in a former Ute All-America, Gabriella Onodi, who joins us. And Gabby, first of all, Gabby's working with us at KJazz, which is nice as an assistant here and an intern. But Gabby, you get a little camera time tonight. Talk to me about the first 3 rotations and how you feel about what Utah's done.
Well, I think they are doing a pretty good job, and I'm excited for them. And I think this is a really good practice for them before nationals.
As you start to peak for nationals, and it's something obviously you've been there, but having nationals here at Utah is a big deal, isn't it?
I think it's going to be great for them, and I'm sad I can be part of it.
Yeah.
And that was your question to her, wasn't it?
Yeah, they're so lucky to get to do this, and it may not feel like it right now, but it is just going to be one of the highlights of their life that they'll never forget.
So it's tough to watch then, right, Gabby?
It is. Yeah.
All right, well, we'll watch this final rotation and see how Utah does, if they can pull off the upset. And the crowd really into this. They know what's at stake here in this final rotation. This is a very sophisticated gymnastics crowd. They've seen multiple national champions here, and they know what a feather in Greg Marsden's cap it would be, and what an accomplishment if Utah could pull off the upset here. Because you might say, well, this is at home, but as we've pointed out, so will the nationals be.
Right, well, and you can say that it's at home, but with 2 judges on each event, 1 judge is a home judge, but the second judge is assigned from anywhere in the country, and they have to be within range, and they average the scores. So they've really tried to do a lot in the last several years to even out the scoring and to diminish that home advantage.
Katie Rue now the first beam competitor for Florida in this final rotation.
So again, Florida's ranked #2 in the country on beam. So they have every expectation of hitting 6 solid routines. There's a back handspring, layout, step out. Straddle jump to layout, step out. Now the Florida team really is strong. I mean, they had huge vaults, really difficult tumbling passes on floor, and they really just made them look easy. And there's a small balance check, side summy. And again, balance beam is not the event where you want every single quarter tenth or half tenth to matter. Arguably the hardest event to compete.
Gabby, this is something you know all too well, right?
Yeah, it is.
She's holding her breath, I think. Is this vicarious living? Is that what this is here now? You watch this and think, I remember being there?
Yeah, exactly. Especially starter position on beam. I want to be there again.
Well, that was a great start for Florida. But, this crowd is on fire. They're feeling a wind. for the first time this year, I think Utah is really believing that they're good enough to be number one.
Katie Cavisto, a junior. First up for Utah. Recorded a career best 9.825 on the floor at Minnesota. And last week in Nebraska scored a 9.75.
2.5 twist, front tuck. Katie recovered from a nasty elbow injury, dislocated elbow, and has really come back strong, and that has potential to be a career-ending injury, especially for gymnastics where half the sport is on your arms. So can't say enough good things about the grit and determination that she's had to recover from that. In my opinion, floor is the easiest event to compete, especially when you're ahead. It's just something, you get in there, you go full out, you can kind of have fun with the crowd. You're not tuning the crowd out like you might be on bars or beam. She's a really dramatic dancer. She uses her body well, has a lot of expression to her arms and upper body and head.
Katie is from Boca Raton, Florida. American Twisters was her club. And finishes with a flourish. Katie Cavisto of Utah.
And I tell you, they are going to do everything they can to make sure Florida knows that they are not at home tonight. Two and a half twist, immediate punch front.
So Katie Cavisto for Utah. Brianne King, the next the beam competitor for Florida. Her teammate Katie Rue with a leadoff 9.8.
Florida has some unusually tall gymnasts. A couple of them are 5'8", which is just amazing to me. They're in really, really good shape. It's just, typically more difficult to do gymnastics for taller athletes. A typical gymnast is probably closer to 5 feet, 5'2".
But those long lines, especially up on the beam, really show, don't they?
Very impressive, absolutely. Front tumbling, front aerial to immediate back handspring step out. Again, bonus for the front aerial for the difficulty of the move, plus the combination into the back handspring. There's another side sum, another difficult side skill.
A few murmurings in the crowd because Katie Cavisto's floor score was posted a moment ago as a 9.775. The crowd, I think, believed that she was better than that.
And a really solid routine for Florida.
And Stephanie Neff is next up for the University of Utah on the floor. She's a freshman, USA Junior National and Junior Olympic team member, recovering from a back injury that sidelined her in the preseason. Competed on the floor in the last two meets. She had a 9.775 against Michigan and a 9.80 against Nebraska.
And that was a huge first tumbling pass, double front. Quite possibly the result of that back injury. It's really difficult to tumble backwards with all the arching that it requires to do the back handsprings. That's when front tumbling can really become strong. It's when you're nursing a back injury. Straddle full to wolf jump full. Okay, final tumbling run. Round off back, whip half, the front full. Oh, and an out of bounds. And there's only a 10th and a half separating these teams at the beginning of this rotation, so every 10th matters.
And this will be what kind of a deduction?
This is 1/10. Here's front layout, front pike, middle tumbling run.
So no problem on that tumbling pass, but it was the end one that got to her. And you talked all the time about fatigue setting in, and it can be felt. Now Melanie Sinclair is the next athlete on the beam for Florida. Brianne King a moment ago with a 9.875. So Florida has a 9.8 and a 9.875 going on the beam. Utah with a 9.775 from Katie Cavisto, and still waiting for the score of Stephanie Neff. And as you pointed out, just a 10.5 separated these two as we started this final rotation.
Well, and so far this routine is flawless. Again, Melanie is a 5-year veteran of the national team. She's competed on 4 different continents, so pressure is nothing new. Competition is old hat to her. And so far it looks like it. There's a scissor side, slightly underturned. Pike jump, straddle jump. Full twisting back handspring swing down. And round off double pike dismount, and a large step on the dismount, an otherwise fantastic routine.
On the floor for the Utes, please welcome Daria Bijak.
So the Utes will be counting Katie's floor score.
And here's Daria Bijak with a 9.675 from Stephanie Neff. So you're right, Katie Cavisto's score of 9.775 will be counted. Daria looking to improve on that.
Front handspring, double front punch front. I can't even describe how difficult that is, Steve. Just an unbelievable first tumbling run. Front double full, oh no.
And that may be it for Utah right there.
That could be it, depending on what happens on beam. She just opened up too fast out at the front tuck. Keeping the energy up through the end of the routine. Wolf full to straddle full. Final tumbling run. Gymnasts are allowed to catch their breath. And a great finish. You know, that's really unfortunate. We just have to sit back and wait and see what happens, Steve. Bets are off now.
Stay with us when we come back. More Utah floor and Florida beam from the Huntsman Center in Salt Lake City. Welcome back, everyone. Let's get right back to it. Florida finishing up on the beam, Utah on the floor. Corey Hartung, the next competitor for Florida. Melanie Sinclair recorded a 9.825, the previous Florida competitor on the beam. And right now, Florida in the driver's seat, Missy Marlowe, because of a couple of Utah bobbles on floor, rather uncharacteristic.
Right, well, they have made up the 10.5 for sure that they were trailing leading in. Beautiful flexibility on the needle scale. Tick-tock. Back handspring to lay out, step out. She doesn't quite have the speed and the aggressive mannerisms of some of the other gymnasts that make them a little more dynamic to watch. But I tell you, Steve, she's not giving the judges anything to deduct on.
And she also has those long lines we spoke about, tall gymnast as well.
This is going to be another fantastic score for Florida. Round off, 2.5 twists to a stuck landing. Boy, she nailed that routine.
And her teammates know it. Annie DeLuzio, Utah's next floor competitor. Daria Bijak scored a 9.675 to tie with Stephanie Neff for a 9.675. Those two, one of those will have to be kept now for the University of Utah in this final rotation. They're going to need a lot of very perfect or near perfect floor routines to try and pull this one out.
There's an Arabian double front, landed just about as well as it can be done.
Which I guess very perfect too, is about as well as it can be done.
Front handspring, front layout, front layout. Hear cheers from the crowd.
I think the crowd a little bit shocked, though, don't you, by the floor routines? I think they're sophisticated enough to sense it.
Yeah, so much energy after beam. It's definitely taken a downturn here. But, you know, anything can happen. One slip from Florida, and it's right back to where we started. So we won't count anybody out. Up back handspring, 2.5 twist to punch front, and that for sure is going to be the meat right there. You know, she just had no punch in her legs out of that 2.5 twist.
Ashley Reed next up on the beam for Florida, and the Gators know they have this meet because Corey Hartung recorded a 9.925 as the former beam competitor for Florida, and they've just witnessed the other bobble by Utah on the floor routine. That's the third one for Utah. So a lot of confidence now by the Gators. The door was opened, and Utah not able to step through it tonight. It's a very good Florida team who may record their first win ever here in the Huntsman Center in Salt Lake City.
There's back handspring, layout, step out, back handspring. Required full turn. And again, Florida has just done a great job of putting together some solid routines here, showing why they're ranked number one. They seem impervious to the pressure. Round off, double twist, just the slightest hop on the landing.
So Ashley Reed for Florida. And Christina Basquette next up on the floor for the University of Utah. By the way, Annie DeLuzio with a 9.275 on the floor. That's the one that Utah will, in all probability, drop, which means they have to keep a pair of 9.675s, Missy.
Well, that's just not going to be good enough. But let's see how they come out fighting here on the last two routines. Here's a piked full in. Landed well. Christina really has the art of performance down on floor. One and a half twist to front layout. Scissor side to straddle full to Shushanova. really doesn't have a resting point in this routine. It's pretty high energy all the way through. Final tumbling run.
That's as close to a rest as you're going to get from her.
Pike double back. And a fantastic floor routine for Utah. You know, they really needed that.
And this crowd sensing how much they needed it. It gives a lift to the crowd and maybe to Utah's team. Probably not enough to win this meet, but certainly to finish very strong.
1.5 twist, front layout.
Amanda Castillo is next up on the beam, the final competitor for the University of Florida.
Handspring step out, layout to 2 feet. Layout step out. You know, Florida just really looks at home on the beam. I mean, they're just solid. There are no balance checks. There's no second guessing anything. Straddle jump, a little bit slow in between on the connections. Not enough to lose credit. Round off, double pike, and just a large step back on the landing. So that step will hurt her, otherwise a fantastic routine.
Ashley Postel, the final competitor now for the University of Utah on floor, went into this rotation leading in the all-around by 1/10 over Amanda Castillo, the young lady you just saw finish up on the beam.
Well, she did a great job on her beam routine, so we'll see what Ashley can pull out here. There's a triple twist, and again, a big step out of bounds.
Well, I may have jinxed her.
Round off, 2.5 twist to front tuck. You know, it's nice to see Utah get some things under control, and it just hurts to see it fall apart again on floor. Straddle full to wolf full. Staying strong right through the last tumbling run. Front handspring, front Rudy. Not the upgraded tumbling pass on the last pass that the judges will want to see.
And that's going to do it as the 4 rotations are concluded here in the Huntsman Center. When we return, final scores and an interview with the winning coach from the #1 ranked Florida Gators.
This KJazz TV sports broadcast is supported in part by Carl's Jr. For the great taste of charbroiled burgers, the name of the game is Carl's Jr. The Les Olson Company, digital copier and fax specialists, quality and service since 1956. R.C. Willey, one place, so many possibilities.
And welcome back to the Huntsman Center. It's in the books, and the University of Florida has pulled it out as Utah opened the door in the floor exercise portion of the competition. The final scores, Utah 196.725 and Florida 197.050. Missy, both teams left the door ajar tonight, but it was up to Florida to walk through it as the Utes just couldn't hold together. And uncharacteristically, this was the lowest scoring of the 4 areas for Utah, the floor.
Right, well, that was just a heartbreaking loss. You know, they were in it right until the last rotation, and in fact, leading into floor. And, you know, they just need to learn how to take it and run because they were in a great situation, and Florida didn't let anything faze them. They just got up on beam, went through the routines, got off, and won the meet.
And joining us now, the coach of the #1 ranked Florida Gators and the winners tonight, head coach Rhonda Fain. Rhonda, congratulations. You have to feel good. Both teams kind of tried to give this one away, didn't they, at some point tonight?
Absolutely. I would say this was not a pretty competition for us by any means. We had a lot of mistakes and missed handstands and missed landings, and I was just really proud of how our girls fought back on balance beam the last event, and really just put in, I think, their overall best performance of the night there when the pressure was really on.
Well, and I would say, I think Utah thought they had the meet won going into floor, and you had to probably sense that from the crowd. And, your athletes just got up and walked through their routines and didn't seem to look back or think twice about it. How do you coach that?
Well, I think it comes a lot from within our conference. The SEC conference is an extremely difficult place to be able to compete in. Our athletes have a lot of experience from competing at Georgia and Alabama and LSU, especially this year, where sometimes the crowd is a little bit more hostile. So this crowd was not as hostile in that sense, but it is very loud down on the competition floor. And I think our athletes are just mature enough to be able to block that out and to know that they just have to go up and do their job and to not get caught up in the things that they can't control.
Well, I want you to know your former Olympic teammate, he was kind of pulling for you a little bit, too. You guys, have you seen each other much over the years?
No, it's so great to see her. I couldn't believe it. When I was over on vault and we were warming up, she came over, and it's so awesome because I get to see some of the other former teammates since two of them live in Florida. But this was great. I love it.
Well, congratulations. You both look like you could still compete. So that's the good news. Rhonda, congratulations and good luck to you as Nationals. You'll be back here again.
See you soon.
Absolutely.
It won't be much of a hiatus. All right. Well, Utah had a chance to win this one tonight. Florida had a chance to win it. The Gators, well, they got the win. Missy, talk to me about the value of this win for Florida, knowing they have to come back here, and talk to me about Utah maybe missing the opportunity to get the upset.
Well, it's always nice to have been on the competition floor for nationals, so just to come back to know what it looks like, what it feels like, is always an advantage. And, Utah, I really felt like they had a great attitude through 3 events. I don't know, there have been meets this year where they just haven't seemed like they've really been giving it 100% effort, and I don't think that was an issue tonight. So that's a step in the right direction. But, things like stepping out of bounds, I mean, that it needs to be fixed. Those are small corrections to make. You just, you shorten up your run a little bit, and you can change your takeoff positions and make those corrections. They really have to do that. They don't have a lot of time left.
All right, thanks, Missy. Well, that's going to do it as Utah had a chance to pull the upset tonight, but the 7th-ranked Utes fall to the number 1-ranked Florida Gators here in Salt Lake City. Steve Brown along with Missy Marlowe for producer Joe Kruger, associate producers Brad Pearson, Cameron Robbins, Jerry Carter, and Lex Konishi. We thank you for joining us this season here. This will be our final telecast. Once again, the final score tonight, the University of Utah falling to the Florida Gators by a total of 196.75 to 197.050. From the Huntsman Center in Salt Lake City, good night, everybody.